I want to start this video a little differently. Not with advice, not with a formula, and definitely not with a highlight reel. I'm not here to sell you a dream. I'm not here to tell you it's easy. And I'm not here pretending I've mastered life. I just want to talk honestly. Because when people talk about going from nothing to wealth, they usually skip the part that actually shapes you. That's the middle. They talk about where they started, they talk about where they ended up, but they rarely talk about what it felt like when progress was slow, when effort didn't match results yet, and when you were still showing up without evidence that it was working. And that part matters. Because if you're in that space right now where you're trying, learning, building, but not seeing much change yet, this video is for you. There is no rush here. You don't need to speed this up. Neither does your life. This part is very important, and I'm going to define nothing. And when I say nothing, I don't just mean money, because you can have money and still feel like you're starting from nothing. Nothing is internal before it's external. Nothing is waking up with ideas but not knowing which one to trust. Nothing is working hard but not having proof you're moving in the right direction. Nothing is wanting more out of life without a clear map of how to get there. For me, nothing looked like restarting in a new country. I migrated from Jamaica to the United States 5 years ago. New systems, new expectations, new pressure to figure things out. And when you start over like that, you're not just building a career or business. You're rebuilding your identity. You're asking yourself, who am I here? What do I bring to the table? What does success even look like now? That uncertainty can feel heavy, not dramatic, not constant. And that's what nothing really is. Not absence of money, but absence of reassurance. My very first business venture in the US was a wedding and event planning company. The business didn't begin with a master plan. It started with a conversation with a friend with a strong vision, a genuine passion for weddings, events, and design, an idea that felt exciting but also risky. We didn't start with capital, we didn't start with recognition, we did not start with experience that people trusted, but we started with belief. And belief doesn't remove pressure. It just gives you a reason to keep going through it. We built slowly, learning as we went, making decisions without guarantees. There were moments where it felt like every step forward came with new obstacles. But what kept us moving wasn't hype, it was commitment. The kind where you decide, I'm going to stay long enough to understand this. That's something people don't talk about, and that is staying. Another important part is the mental weight of starting behind. Starting from nothing affects your mind long before it affects your lifestyle. You start questioning yourself quietly. Am I moving fast enough? Am I doing this right? Is this even worth it? You look around and see people your age, already settled into their routines. They're stable, they're comfortable, and they're also predictable. And you're still experimenting, still adjusting, still trying to make sense of the path. That comparison can slowly drain you if you're not careful. But here's something I've learned. Starting behind forces you to build strength early. You learn patience before comfort, discipline before reward, focus before validation. Those qualities don't feel special at the beginning, but they are exactly what allows people to handle well later without losing themselves. Nothing about this part feels glamorous, but it's foundational. There's also this myth of figuring it out. There's this idea that one day everything will suddenly make sense, that you'll wake up confident, clear, and certain about everything. That moment doesn't really exist. Most people who build something meaningful don't start with clarity. They start with curiosity. They start by trying, by failing quietly, by adjusting. Confidence doesn't come from action. It comes because of it. You don't wait to feel ready. You become ready by doing. and that process is uncomfortable. You're trusting instincts you're still developing. You're making decisions without knowing outcomes. You're learning through experience and not theory. That's not a flaw. That's how growth works. Every real success story has invisible years. Years where you're consistent but unnoticed. You're disciplined but uncertain. You're learning faster than you're earning. These years don't feel dramatic. They feel quiet. And that quiet can be dangerous because it makes people question if they're wasting time. But nothing is being wasted. This is where your habits settle, your patience deepens, and your values become clear. You're not just building results, you're building capacity. And that matters more than people realize. As you grow, your life begins to change quietly. Your schedule tightens, your focus narrows, and your priorities shift. And people notice. Some support you, some question you, some don't understand you anymore. Not because they're bad people, but because growth creates distance. You start choosing rest over noise, long-term goals over short-term comfort. That can feel isolating, but isolation isn't always loss. Sometimes it's alignment. There were seasons where nothing around me looked stable. Plans felt uncertain. Progress felt slow. And in those moments, faith became less about confidence and more about trust. Not trust that everything would work instantly, but trust that the process wasn't meaningless. Faith didn't remove obstacles, it gave perspective. It reminded me that growth was happening even when I couldn't measure it. Wealth doesn't fix insecurity, it amplifies what's already there. Real wealth is peace, choice, and stability. It's not reacting emotionally to every step back. It's not panicking when things shift. That's why the journey matters. Because who you become on the way determines what wealth gives you later. If you're starting from nothing, if it feels slow, if it feels unclear, if it feels lonely at times, you're not behind. You're learning. You're developing strength most people skip. And if you're still here, still listening, that means something in you is committed. Stay with it. One day, this season will make sense. And when it does, you'll be glad you stayed. If this helped you, subscribe. This channel is for people building real success, quietly, honestly, and with intention. We're just getting started.